Welcome to today's video, and today I decided I'm going to install a mod chip as I haven't done one this year. So this is my Nintendo Switch. This is a version 2. I think I've probably fixed it on a previous video, but it all works perfect, there's no issues. We just need to take it apart and install this RP2040 mod chip. So these are readily available off AliExpress. You literally just need to search RP2040, the listings constantly change every day. And then these are the main parts you're going to need: flux, solder, and a soldering iron. So I do sometimes use a fine tip soldering iron, but I tend to prefer the larger tip, so it's each to their own, personal preference. And then the bonus on top will be a microscope, but it's not really a necessity, more a little bonus. So we'll get our iFixit kit out. We'll start with a Y00 bit head to begin with. This is your tri-wing screw head. So we'll turn the switch off, remove the 4 tri-wing screws out the back. Then we'll move on to the JIS00. This is a Phillips head screw. And then we'll take the screws out the side and then peel the back cover off. Same screwdriver bit for the back heat plate. So remove all of these screws, they're all the same size, so it doesn't matter mixing them up. And then very carefully remove the SD card connector. You can damage the board if you're too rough with it. And then peel the heat shield off. Battery comes off straight away. And then 3 more Phillips head screws that come off from the heat pipe. Careful when you remove this, you don't want to be ripping the foam that's attached. This one's already ripped. And then we'll pop that to the side. Now we need to remove this heat shield. So the best way to do it is to get a fine needle and then very carefully pry these out. You need to take your time doing this because if you slip, you might be damaging the board, scratching the board, knocking chips off, turning it into a big job. So very carefully bend them out, then we'll just peel it off. And now this is what we got to work with. So firstly we need to remove the thermal paste. So just come with my plastic spatula and scrape off the bulk of it. Then just get a little bit of tissue, remove the excess, and then a little bit of isopropyl. Just take your time with this. You don't want to be too rough. We just need to basically clear these chips at the bottom because we're going to be soldering to 2 of them. So once they're all clean as that is, we'll come in with our version 2 adapter and then we'll pre-tin it beforehand. So just apply a little bit of flux, a little bit of solder to these pads. It will make it easier for our next stage. Give it a little clean with isopropyl and line it in. So the tabs go underneath the heat shields on the side and on the bottom. And then make sure these chips along the side are lined up. If they're lined up, you know you're soldering to the right chips. Little tip that I use is apply a little bit of Kapton tape to the side. This means it won't move. And then this is why I like to use a microscope now, because it is doable by eyesight, but as I'm getting a bit older, I prefer to use a microscope to be able to zoom right in to make sure I've got good connections. So we'll come with a little bit of flux, and then I'll come with my soldering iron. So there's 2 different techniques that I use. So the first one is that I hold it on both sides because the tip's long enough. And then the solder will carefully flow onto the chip itself and make a good connection. The other option, come with your flux and then tilt to the side and then just do them either side. Solder to one side, solder to the other. The flux makes the solder flow, so there's no harm adding a little bit more flux if you need to. You just need to make sure you've got a good solder joint to the chips on the board. Little bit of isopropyl to clean it away. Word of warning, do not hold the soldering iron on the chip for too long, as there's a good risk you're going to pull it off the board. So do it within moderation. Now we can remove this old bit of Kapton tape. This is no longer needed. And then I'll just solder one of these legs on here. I don't normally do this, but they are sort of anchor point. So I'll do it for the video. And then that's that. The soldering's done. Come with a little bit of Kapton tape to cover the solder joints to make sure that they don't short against the plate when it goes back on. and then a plastic lever to remove the NAND chip. If this shield comes off as it has with mine, come in again with the plastic lever and then just peel it away. It's just stuck on with some double-sided tape. Nothing too bad, just take your time so you don't damage it. And then you can pop that back into place. Just line it up and click it in. Now we get our mod chip in. The NAND chip clips into place. Make sure it's lined up. And then clip it together. And then that's it, nice and simple. And then we just need to line it all up next. So we've got one ribbon cable that we need to connect, so use your tweezers to pop it into place. And then once it's in, just push the lever over. Make sure it's securely seated and then just fold it back over, clip it into where the NAND was once placed, and now we can give it a test. So put some plastic underneath just to make sure you don't short it, reconnect the battery. Now if we have a little look, you'll see it flashes a couple of different colours. Normally goes a couple of blues, flashes on and off, and then when it goes to green, it normally means it's working. Flip it over, no SD card, and we're all fully working. If it's not working at this point, you need to go back to check your solder points. If you're 100% certain the solder points are fine, then make sure that the RP2040 chip has got firmware installed on it. I'll leave a link in the description if you need instructions on how to do that. Now we'll go back to our heat shield, so we'll remove the old solder paste. Make sure you push the pins back into place, and then we just need to get a pair of pliers to flatten out this top part here. Make sure this is flattened because this is where the ribbon cable comes out underneath. Apply a little bit of thermal paste underneath. You have to take my word, I've put the perfect amount on, and then clip it back in. Little bit of Kapton tape on the heat shield here because this is where the mod chip's going to sit. And then you just need to line your rear heat shield back up just so you know where we need to cut. So I've done it enough times now, I don't need to mark it, but I found the best way to use a pair of scissors, cut down, do your best not to cut all the way through, you don't want to cut it in half. It just needs to go around about where the black tape begins, and then the best way I then find is then just fold it down, fold that edge bit back into place, and then with this piece, you just wiggle it back and forward until it comes off. And there you can see, absolutely perfect fit. So a little bit more paste on the heatsink, line that back up, and then we'll pop our 3 screws back into there, perfect amount of thermal paste on the top of it, reconnect the battery, put your heat shield on, and then put all the screws back into the back of it. Just line up your SD card reader very carefully. I find it helps to push it in with a lipper or a screwdriver. Put the screw back in, put the foam pad back in to secure it, and then I pop a little bit of Kapton tape on the back. This is going to stop the mod chip from moving. We don't want it shorting against anything. So that should be perfect there. And then we'll put the back cover back on and we're almost pretty much done. So clip it all in. It needs a little clip at the top where the vent is. And then we'll come with our Phillips head screws, so all around the side. And then our tri-wing screws, the 4 on the back. Remove the old bit of tape, we'll give it a clean up and then we're done. So it is really easy, simple process to do. Press the power button. If there's no SD card in it, it's going to come up with no SD card. You need to install Atmosphere and Attacky onto your SD card to get to boot. If you want to boot up normal once you've modded it though, hold the volume up and down buttons together, press the power button, and then you get the Nintendo logo. And then it'll boot up as a normal Switch will. So hopefully you've enjoyed me installing a mod chip in 2026. It's still just as easy as it previously was. Only do if you're feeling very confident, as you don't want to risk ruining your Nintendo Switch. But hopefully you found it informative. Any questions, drop them in the comments. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.